Retiring in the San Miguels. Electricity at the Golden Mermaid Villa. Episode 25. Construction in the old world is very different from construction in the new world. I had this fantasy that I'd be able to get all this work done in like 3 months. I thought I'd just call 3 or 4 different highly rated contractors to get competitive bids. This was not a room that was unoccupied for years, but ongoing house that was owned by the same family for 4 generations. I wasn't planning on knocking down any walls or doing any major reconstruction. I would ask my network of acquaintances like Marco the politician, Richard the taxi driver, the barber, other English-speaking expats about different contractors that I could use. Since there was very little reviews on websites that you can find, and the few that you could was all in Portuguese, and and they didn't have a big culture of doing all these reviews like in America. So it was really up to using word of mouth to figure out where I might be able to get some electricians. The first and most important thing was to redo all the wiring in the building, because the building was originally built in 1929 and it was built without electricity or indoor bathrooms. So electricity was installed, I think, in the late 60s or early 70s, and there was no grounding wire used at all, and nothing was up to code. So I decided I would have to have it all replaced to feel safe in this new home. The home inspector who inspected the house for the real estate transaction, he gave me a ballpark figure of possibly up to 50,000 euros to redo all the wiring, because it was 25 rooms. That would take up half of all my funds that I set aside to rehab this house. So I called a number of electricians, but they never answered my phone call, or they wouldn't speak English. So I had my contacts make the call to get them to come, and I had quite a few of them come and look at the work to be done. But after they left, they never called me back. They wouldn't answer my phone calls. I never got a quote. I drew up plans to put of where all the lights, the switches, the outlets, the air conditioner and dehumidifier placed up on a map, but that didn't help. They all ghosted me. I think for some of them there was more than what they can handle. Some people, they just are, the big companies that are good charge a lot, plus my project's too small. So you have to go to, say, a second tier or a third tier electrician, and the third tier ones are just maybe they were apprentice for someone, but could do simple stuff, but not more complex stuff like a whole redo of house. There are 2 ways to do a project here in the old world. One would be to get a bid for the whole project, which would require them to figure everything out, add a buffer for shortfalls, which means that the price would be high. The second way is just to hire them by the hour plus materials. Best to try to buy the materials yourself, since they would normally mark up the materials, uh, you know, but sometimes they required them to buy the materials. Um, Plus they had their connections, and it might be about the same. I don't know. You know, if you're on site to oversee the project, this is the cheapest way to go. Um, I think the material costs are maybe a little bit higher than in the U.S. because everything has to be shipped to a small island, and there isn't as much competition. It appears that the Zorian rate for electrician would maybe be $16 to $25 or euros an hour for a real electrician, and maybe 8 to 12 euros for an assistant. And the expat rate would be more. Most of Europe is on a 220 as opposed to the US 110 voltage. So everything is completely different. The plugs, the local codes, and everything. So this is really something I needed to hire a local electrician who would know, how things are traditionally done. Just like one of the things is that bathrooms in America, you'd have your light switches on the inside of the bathroom, but in Europe or the Azores, all the electrical switches have to be outside, because if there's water on the floor, you don't want to get electrocuted, and that's what they think. So that's one of the many differences between the old world and the new world. In the US, most houses are wood framed with drywall. That makes it very easy to hide wires in the wall. But in most older buildings in the old world, the walls, are made of solid stone or concrete that can be anywhere from 8 inches to 36 inches. In my villa, the top 2 floors are 12 inches thick, but the basement is 22 inches thick of solid rock and concrete. So the only way to hide them in the walls to actually build a wall, put a drywall in front of the stone wall, or to actually dig channels into the concrete to lay the wire. Either way, it's very time consuming and expensive. So I did what most of the world does. They just put the wiring in conduits on top of the wall where you can see them and get to them very easily. After 5 months of trying to get an electrician, I finally got one with a lot of help from my politician friend. So the electrician finally started work 1 week after I actually left the Azores to visit and run my pirate store for a month during Halloween. But I left my younger brother Mark, who's a computer engineer who knows a lot more about electrical issues, to oversee the beginning of the electrical work. So it cost me $28 or 28 euros for electrician and one assistant. They estimated it would take maybe 4 to 6 weeks at 40 hours a week to complete the project. So the labor would be maybe 6,000 to 8,000 euros, and maybe 8,000 to 10,000 euros in materials, including all the lights and fans that I purchased. So that's maybe 15,000 euros, which I thought was a pretty good deal, a lot less than my home inspector's estimation. We are on week 4 and hope to have it all done in 2 more weeks. So sometimes it's difficult to figure out all my electrical needs, so I have changes. But, these guys, they don't put a fuss or complain. They just say okay and do it. Since they're just working by the hour, if it takes more time, they make more money. They don't make a big fuss like in the States. They, usually always put a fuss if you have changes. With an old building, they have to drill new holes, and sometimes it damages the wall. I mean, sometimes it gets covered by the plastic conduits. Sometimes there's just big gaping holes that are going to need to be patched. But sometimes it goes through tile, and then all those tiles come crashing down the wall, and it just makes a whole new project for me to work on that I wasn't planning on having to take care of. So now I have to figure out if I want to try to save and reinstall these old tiles, or if I should take them all down and put something new up instead in that room. So I was looking, and I have over 13 different types of tile in my villa, not including a few on the outside. So let me know what you think I should do with the new tile, or save the old tile on this Golden Mermaid villa.